All right, today we're going to review Lesson 4, and the topic of today's lesson in Geometry Module 1, Lesson 4 was constructing perpendicular bisectors. And so we start off by reviewing the concept of what it meant to be perpendicular and what it meant to bisect something. And so perpendicular we associated with two lines that formed 90-degree angles. And so any two or more lines that formed 90-degree angles were considered perpendicular. And then a bisector basically just meant you're dividing something, whether it be a segment, or in this case, segments, but it could be angles, angle bisectors, as we've learned in Lesson 3. We're dividing something in half. And so after today's lesson, you should be able to construct a perpendicular bisector and discover the relationship between the ideas of symmetry with respect to a line and a perpendicular bisector. So the warm-up problem today was a review of angle bisectors. And so I'll do a quick review of what that looked like. And so this was our warm-up problem. Okay. In review for the lesson today, we went through and we discussed things like angle bisectors and how they create a certain bit of symmetry. So here's an angle bisector, and discussion, I encourage everyone to read through here, centered around the idea of symmetry, in that this line, this angle bisector, is a collection of points that are equidistant. For instance, F is the midpoint between E and G. C is the midpoint between B and D. And we further defined what a midpoint was here in the notes, as well as we reassert ourselves in terms of our knowledge of right angles. The main portion of the lesson deals, of course, with being able to construct a perpendicular bisector. And as we go closer in, they give us a diagram of what amounts to be a line that is the actual perpendicular bisector constructed when they gave us a segment AB. So they gave us this segment, and they asked, in this diagram, they're demonstrating how to find the perpendicular bisector. And down below, as you'll notice, we reviewed the steps and we analyzed the steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 that allowed us to find segment CD, which was the perpendicular bisector. This is the lesson. And so we filled in the idea that any point on a perpendicular bisector, a line segment, is equal from the endpoints of the line segment. So again, building this concept of what is a perpendicular bisector. 1, we form a right angle, and 2, we have an equal distance from these points. So you watch 2 videos, and then we got right to the practice in class. And so I'm going to go through this quickly. At any time, you can pause and stop, rewind. But I'm going to do the problems for the partner work, review this, and I'm going to skip over some things but that we did in class, or that you can fill in the video as you're doing this at home. But the idea is utilizing this skill of constructing a perpendicular bisector. So in the directions in our first exercise here, it says you know how to construct a perpendicular bisector of a segment, which we just reviewed. Now investigate how to construct a perpendicular to a line from point A, not on that line. So here's the line that they give us. And then there's a point A, and they want us to now construct a perpendicular bisector going through point A. And they even give us a hint. They give us this hint for step 1. Draw circle A, where the center is at A and the radius of the circle intersects the line in 2 points. And so the first step is to put your needle here at A. And then I'm going to have to extend my compass so that I get at least 2 spots two spots that cross this line here and here. And I just randomly chose that arc measure. It could have been further out, but regardless, I have two spots, two intersection points from the circle, the center of A. From this point, I'm going to go back to, and I kept saying this exercise here where we have 2 points. Consequently, we drew a circle for A and then a circle for B with the same radius and connected the dots. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So in this problem, it's a matter of, again, picking the size of a circle, and we could do the same. This distance right here, we could do this, or as long as it's more than halfway, and that's what I'll show here. Do a little half moon, same distance here, a half moon, and then you'll notice, again, I'm looking for the point of intersection here and here, and it should, if it's done correctly, go through point A, and it does. So here's the perpendicular bisector that goes through point A and forms a right angle. And as I will show, this distance here is equivalent to this distance here. Now the steps can be drawn in by yourself. It's basically the same as, or at least an adaptation to, the steps outlined earlier in the notes. Now, we review what right angles are here in the notes, what perpendicular means, and what equidistant. A key idea is, what does equidistant in our notes? Make sure you're aware of that and familiar with it. The next example I'm going to go through is practice problem number 1. There are 2 parts. Eventually, we want to be able to construct 2 lines that are parallel. The concept of parallel pops out. Well, the first step is to construct a perpendicular line L3, which is not here yet, to line 1, which is here, from point A, not on L1, which this looks like the same problem we just did. And in fact, we're going to do the same exact thing that you just saw me do a minute ago. Take our compass. We're going to draw a circle, or at least we're going to intersect this line at 2 spots. Now, this might be hard to see in the video, but basically you can see my faint lines intersect there and there. And just like in the previous example, I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to go more than halfway. And I'm going to find intersection points and then simply connect these points. Now I'm going to extend this out a little bit because in part 2, so part 1 is done. We have completed part 1. Part 1 is done. Part 2 says construct a perpendicular L2 to line 3. Now line 3 is what we just constructed in orange. And they want us to go through point A again. Now, what this amounts to be, and my little hint is to turn the paper like this. And then I'm going to basically repeat the same thing I just did. I'm going to start, however, with drawing a circle with center A, and a delicate approach to this is really important. You can move your paper. You got to make sure you don't lose sight of the distance of the compass. And so it starts with a circle. And from there, you'll notice that I'm going to use this point and basically treat it like I did here. And so as I do that, I'm going to go just beyond half point. And I'm going to find that I have 2 points of intersection from those marks that I then use to construct a perpendicular to line 3. And so now line 2 is perpendicular to line 3. We've done that. Line 3 is perpendicular to line 1. And now line 2 is parallel to line 1. And so that finishes up problem, the practice problem here, number 1. Again, rewind this, pause it, whatever you got to do. Finally today, we end up with number 2 on the video here. It says construct the perpendicular bisectors AB, BC, CA on the triangle below. What do you notice about the segments you have constructed? Okay, so effectively, I'm going to take each side at a time, and I'm going to construct their individual perpendicular bisectors. So just as I did here with 2 points on a line and constructing a perpendicular bisector, I'm going to use these 2 points to start off with. So I'm going to move the paper and I'm going to go ahead and just show you. I'm going to use these 2 points, and just like I did before, put my needle, I'm going to go beyond halfway. Just get a little tick marks here, just a little arc marks, because the lines are going to get busy now the more that we have to do. So I may have to extend that one down. I do. So come back to C, and there are this point and this point. I'm going to connect that, and that's my first perpendicular bisector to AC. Okay? Now I'm going to do that 2 other times, and I'm going to switch colors so you can see it. The next one I'm going to go ahead and just do, I'm going to do C. Now I've already used C here before, so I have that mark. I'm going to keep the compass the same distance, and I'm going to notice here, well, I can do this for, oops, that kind of fell off. Got to make sure, and that kind of fell off. So sometimes it happens that I'm going to have to erase this because my needle moved. My needle moved, so I'm going to have to erase it. So I want to come back here again. Be very careful that your needle's not moving. And we're looking for points of intersection. There they are right there. So as you look here, I've got this point and this point, which will help me with the perpendicular bisector to BC. There we go. Ooh. Now we got one more. We've got to do AB. And so I'm going to turn this page a little bit to make it easy for me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reduce this down a little bit. And so B then, same distance here. There's one. Come back here, and there's another one right there and right there. And look, as I begin to draw this, you begin to realize something. Boom. You should begin to see that all 3 lines intersect at the same spot. All three of these perpendicular bisectors intersect at the same point. And this point has a special name, which we're going to look at in the next few lessons. Okay, so this has a special name, this point right here, and we'll be looking at that more in depth as we move forward in this particular module. All right, so that wraps up our work right now, our video work for lesson 4. Again, watch it over and over again until you finally can see some things connect. And if you're still having trouble, make sure you come in and see me. All right, thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.